Take it away, Jen.
Oh, sorry. Okay, this is the weekly meeting on March 19th, 2020. Starting with introductions. I think everybody who's here this meeting was also here last meeting, but it will be good to go through and get introduction from Nate, because you weren't here last time. What we did at the last meeting was, what's your name, where are you from, and if you have something interesting to share that's 30 seconds or less. Go ahead.
I'm Nate Lampton from Oakland, California, and yeah, just giving a status update this week on Backdrop progress. I looked a little bit into the security release that was released yesterday, and we'll talk a little bit about that today. Ta-da!
All right, Greg, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I'm Greg. I'm joining from Melbourne. I help many things. I haven't been working on anything specific recently. Just here to help out.
Matthias, would you like to introduce yourself again?
Matthias from Switzerland. I'm doing copywriting and helping a small business with marketing. Backdrop, I do currently a lot of front-end work. But my goal for today is to listen and to get more familiar with the status of the project.
Tim.
Excuse me. I'm Tim, and I am Tim Erickson, St. Paul Tim on the internet. I am temporarily in Deerwood, Minnesota. I think I said Brainerd earlier, but if I get more specific, Deerwood would be the local vicinity, and I'm hanging out with my parents here for the next few weeks. It looks like so, and working remotely as I do anyways, just not from a coffee shop.
Peter.
I'm Peter from Estonia, and been working a bit of tugboat stuff lately. Otherwise, enjoying my newfound role as core committer and doing some stuff there.
Joseph.
I'm Joseph Losfeld, and I've been working mostly on performance and theme settings. Pretty much everything around those.
Great. I'm Jen Lampton, and I just looked at the Works for Me tag in the bug queue, and I'm so impressed with all of the work people have been doing. I'm motivated today to not only write the blog post, which I said in the last meeting I would write, but also to get some code reviews in for all these people who are fixing our bugs. Since the last time we met, there are 3 new contributed projects with stable releases. Lumi, I don't know what Lumi is. It looks like it's a customizable administration theme. Yeah, that lets you select from various color schemes. Fantastic color support in there too. And then there are 2 modules, site verification and file entity embed filter. So thanks to all the people who are continuing to create and release new modules for Backdrop. There's also been a bunch of activity in existing core or existing contributed modules as well, but I didn't take the time to list all of the releases for those also. So let's turn it over to Nate to talk about release updates.
All right. So we always cover the next bug fix release first. 1.15 is our current minor version of Backdrop, with the next bug fix release being 1.15.1. As of yesterday, we have an impetus to make a release for 1.15.1, which is yesterday, Drupal released an update or security release for Drupal 8 and a notice for the CK editor module for Drupal 7. So the issue is related to CK editor created a new version of their editor 1.14, and 1.14 includes some security enhancements. Unfortunately, as noted in the name, 1.14 is not a bug fix release. It's a new minor version for CK editor, so it could include some breaking changes. Backdrop is currently running CK editor 1.20 12.1. So it's actually a jump of 2 minor versions for us. And so we were a little slow on the uptake yesterday, getting a corresponding release out for Backdrop. But although we had the opportunity to have a release yesterday that was coordinated with Drupal, that big of a jump in CKEditor version seemed likely to cause breakage. And it's not really a security release that's in the normal sense that we're fixing a vulnerability in Backdrop. It's just that we're updating a third-party library, CKEditor, with the security enhancement in it. And so kind of what we've been kicking around as an idea is that we'd like to, instead of rushing out that release, we did make a pull request in the security queue, but considering both Drupal has made a release and that this version of CKEditor has been out since March 4th, there's not really any secret here. So we'd like to move it to the public queue to get a wider testing on that. And also the security team doesn't have live sandboxes, and that makes testing more tedious for the security team. So move that into a public issue. I think we actually have an ongoing issue all the time for like keep CKEditor up to date. I'm honestly not really much of a fan of updating CKEditor to a new minor version inside of a bug fix release. But I guess this is puts us in a weird place that they only included the security enhancement in the newest minor version. So I think that we're kind of in a situation where we should try updating and then test thoroughly just to make sure that we don't create a regression inside of the latest minor version in a bug fix release.
Do we have the option of pulling out the fix and applying a patch to the current version we're running, and then we could update to the next version in 1.16? Or is the fix dependent on the changes that are in this minor version of CKEditor?
I think I'm not 100% certain. I kind of think that 1.14 actually like changes substantially the way that code is filtered. And so I think it's not like a couple of lines. I think it's like we rewrote how the system works kind of thing. So I think that and I don't know that for certain, I'm just suspecting that that's the case. Let's see. So I don't know if it's possible to apply directly. But I guess, I don't know what to really say about that at this point, other than we should probably just test it and see how things go.
Nate, can you remind us what the policy is for bug fix releases? Do we always try to do those on Wednesdays? Or
for
not?
Security releases, yes, we always try to do them on Wednesdays. Bug fixes in general come out whenever is necessary, but security releases we do on Wednesdays.
Okay.
I've been skimming through the changelog for CKEditor, and it's a huge change set. Like even the GitHub says that this is a big. We're just showing only the 250 most recent commits, but there's two that have sort of like by the title have caught my eye. One of them says remove. Bear with me. Remove IE11 and Safari features and mark IE11 as unsupported environment. So there are some substantial changes, I guess.
Anyway, so we don't have an issue for this particular thing yet. I think we have the big meta for CKEditor, keep it up to date. It might be good to make a specific one for this particular issue and describe the overall situation about how we probably need to be at least seen as being responsible and updating at the same pace as Drupal 8, which faced the same problem. And then move the pull request that is in the security queue which is just a typical CKEditor update. Like we have a process for updating CKEditor. It's just doing the normal update and then committing the result to the CKEditor library in core.
Do you have any specific recommendations for how we can help test this other than apply it and just see if our editing broke?
Yep, that's I don't have any real firm suggestions other than try to use all of the features, you know, that are in CKEditor. The integrations are a common thing that would be likely to break. Things like seeing if you can copy and paste an image, making sure all the dialogues work, the links work, link dialogue, the image dialogue, and things like that.
Okay. It might not hurt when you post the PR to have a few quick suggestions like that of things to look for somebody testing it.
CKEditor. There might be some good suggestions already. That meta issue is 3355 for
Okay.
keep CKEditor up to date.
Okay.
This does. It does include some things.
Okay.
List of things to test each time. Okay, so that's going to be 115.1, which is probably going to come out next Wednesday. Like that's generally what's probably going to be happening in the near future. 115.2, it looks like we've created this milestone to kick things into that are just general bug fixes that aren't related to the security update. However, I don't think that these changes necessarily need to be held out. It's always good to minimize the chance for breakage for security releases, though. So if these things are obvious, if they are simple fixes with low chances of regressions and have complete test coverage, then they probably will go into 115X and also be in the 115.1 release. But in the event that they're not merged in the next week, list of things that are RTBC in the 115 queue include a issue with views search query class. It's missing from search autoload info. That's 4328, trivial fix. The language field can't be moved around reliably, issue 4321. I'm not actually familiar with that one.
So on the node form, we have a bunch of like hook field extra fields for things that aren't actually fields, and language is one of those things. But in the weighting category, if you move it in the UI, it doesn't stay there all the time, and it isn't always reflected on the form itself.
I see. It looks like this was a regression from the switch from language to lang code, that it just changes that to match. It just is matching up the keys, and that fixes that. Let's see. Next one is parameter 3 to views UI build form state expected to be a reference value given in views UI Ajax form. Whew, that's a mouthful, but the issue is 4323. It's a cross port from Drupal 7 views. So again, a low risk issue because it's already in the Drupal 7 version of views. And then lastly, an issue that we've been talking about for a couple of weeks, 4306, this issue that makes tests run faster and includes time indicators on each test saying how long it takes to execute, which should allow us to optimize tests as we build them out in the future. Current status on that one, it might need work. There's some intermittent failures, or an intermittent failure that seems to be caused by one of the changes. So yeah, we want to avoid those from happening. That's it for things that are in the next bug fix release. As always, you can check the 115 bug fix milestone. Right now, the next one is 115.2. And there are a number of issues there that most of which have pull requests that most of which mostly need review. Next up is the minor version. Next minor version is 1.16. 1.16 will be coming out May 15th with feature freeze on May 1st. There's some features already implemented into 1.16, and we'll go over the ones that are currently in progress. First up is color module support is not inherited by child themes. It's issue 3348. It's currently marked RTBC. I think that one, is Peter still here? No. Oh, yeah. I think that, hang on. Oh, I thought Peter was the pull request creator, but Joseph is. Great. So that one's marked RTBC. Fantastic. Is there anything to add on that from you, Joseph? Other than you did the work?
I'd really love to get it in.
There you
so I
go.
can use it.
Okay. Next up is base install profiles, adding the ability to sub profile an install profile. It's issue 3174. BW Panda is the advocate for this. Peter, can you provide us an update?
Yes, so the situation is that it seems to have been tested by a few people who seem happy with it. So based on their feedback, I've marked it RTBC. However, Greg, on behalf of you, Nate, has requested tests to be added. And I'm not sure how to do tests. So I've written there that I need someone to come in and either do them or help me do them. Just today, Doc Wilmont has contacted me and offered to do like a screen share session and sort of walk me through how to do that. So we'll hopefully do that soon, and I might be able to get around to doing that. But otherwise, if someone else wants to jump in, then just test the meter. Otherwise, it's ready to go, I think.
Yeah, I was about to say that if you guys do a session, I would be interested as well. Just
by the way, I have started working on a test for that. It's a little weird. I don't think the test system currently supports the changes you made. So the test system, when it's doing its setup, kind of is making some assumptions that are no longer true. So I think I'm going to have to make some changes there.
Okay, so Joseph, you'll help Peter with that?
Mm-hmm.
Great, thank you.
I would also, if there's a screen share about, if Doc Wilmot's going to do that screen share, I would love to listen to that as well.
So on that topic, a while back, people were asking that we do a virtual user group on writing tests. And the problem was always getting someone to delete it. And so I would just recommend it would be great if we did something like that to just publicize. It doesn't have to be at a certain time, but whenever you do it, if you could share that, I think there's a broader interest in writing tests, and it does seem to be a big roadblock on a number of issues. So if we could get more people writing tests, that would be great.
So yeah. You're suggesting that we record it, right?
I hadn't specifically said that, but that is a good thought. Yes, that we also record it. Sure.
Yeah, no, I'd like to see if we can get a few people to join in so they can ask questions and stuff and have a bit of discussion. But yeah, I'll talk to Dr. Wilmot and see what he wants to do there.
I can help with logistics if it's helpful. I mean, you don't need to involve me, but if I'm helpful, let me know.
Cool, thanks.
What was that someone had just mentioned that Doc Wilmot was thinking about doing a screen share? Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, so he contacted me when he saw my post about that I can't write tests currently because I can't get my head around simple test or know where to start. So he offered just to do a screen share with me personally and just sort of walk me through what he reckons I can pick it up in 5 minutes once he sort of shows me the basics.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, we'll see if we can reconcile and make all of that reusable. We'll have to seek permission from him, of course, and I don't want to discourage him from doing it at all.
Yeah, emphasize that too, that all of my ideas should not prevent this from happening behind the scenes if that's what needs to happen. But I
Right.
do think that as a community, we really need something more public about tests as well. If that takes longer to pull together, that's okay, but let's also make that happen. And I don't know, Nate, if you are somebody that needs to be involved in that bigger thing, or who are our test experts right now? You and Jeff and Doc Wilmot? Or,
If there's any reason that it's not recorded, if there's enough people attending it, we can write about it or record a different session, just
Right.
Learning. So that's not an issue.
Okay. Okay, great. Let's see. Next up, I'm interested to hear updates on this one. New text format configuration user interface, issue 1032. Gregory, can you provide us the update?
Yeah, just bear with me. Sorry. So what was the one? Sorry, I get distracted.
Oh, the new text format configuration UI 1032 with the dialogues.
Oh, yes. So that Doc Wilmot has provided a new pull request that I just need to test. I haven't tested it. So the objection there was, we mentioned this during the previous dev meeting, that we were loading the separate form bits in dialogues, and then we were, once the dialogue was set, we were passing those values back to the main form where the fields were hidden via JavaScript, and we agreed that that's not the best way to do it. So Doc Wilmot 2 days ago, filed a new pull request.
Great. Yeah, it looks like he reworked it substantially as suggested. There's new sandbox and new pull request. And so far, pending review.
And testing as well, both testing and review.
I'm pulling this up because I want to see it. So, okay, that's very exciting. So yeah, a whole lot of new things happening there. Currently needs code review and testing. Cool. Thanks, Doc Wilmot. Again, if you watch this, for all of your hard work on this and other issues. Gregory, do you want to give us an update on the next issue, which is providing a way to re-enable disabled text formats?
Yeah, there's no update on that one. It just needs testing and code review.
Oh, that's right. Still, yeah. That one's probably ready to go if we could get some eyeballs on it.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving along. Better workflow states, issue 1475. This big messy one. Tim, can you give us the update?
Jen maybe should, because we had a great meeting, Jen, Greg and I last week, and talked about it. So.
But I don't think there's any update on the issue itself. It hasn't progressed for a while. I think it's currently labeled needs more feedback. I'm not sure it needs more feedback. I think it just needs an issue summary update. So I think the plan was to try and refocus this issue onto only the features we're sure we're including in core right now, and then create another issue that was the addition of the contrib features, and then reevaluate that later for core involvement if we want it.
I think that needs feedback was that Doc Wilmot wanted us to settle our differences before he invested any more time. And I think we can say that we did that last week, right? We all kind of had a...
But we would need to write that down somewhere.
Yeah.
He can't do any work. Yeah.
Right. Yes.
So that's what we're at now.
Right.
And in the few details that we didn't have a solid, not agreement, we have an agreement, but it's like terminology and things. There's one sub issue that was created to consider renaming revisions to versions, and then I started, it's in one of my open tabs, a big issue about what we call the current or viewable or active whatever version. And I've started making a list of possible things and pros and cons why some of them can be like ambiguous. And I'm going to open that for discussion, but these are details. These are just terminology, so it shouldn't affect the main decision that we made about how this should work. We just need to put it down in writing. That's it.
So what's the next step on this? Jen, do you think you have time to open it? I think, didn't we decide our plan was to close that issue and open the 2 new issues and just link back to this one?
Yeah.
Right? And if that's something you think you're likely to have time to do, no?
Not today.
Well, in the next couple of days. I won't today either, but
Yeah, I'll try to. I'll put it on my list.
okay.
But I would love to get it done today. I just don't think that's realistic.
Understood.
Okay. And then Tim, once I do get those, I'll send them over to you to QA to make sure I got what we decided on right. If that's okay, I can send it to Greg too.
Sure.
Yeah, I think we have a Zulip channel about that, so just
I'll plunk them in there.
Well, and we have that Google Doc too, so we got something to work from.
Yeah.
and ignore the comments that I have added there about my ideas. These are for follow-up issues, just note to selves, so ignore them.
Okay.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, thanks guys for hashing this out together, because I know it's tricky. Also, I just love that the way that even though that issue is really sticky and hard, I'm really happy to see the way that it's proceeding, you know, like with the unified collaborative effort. So very cool. Last up, allow customization of the author and date display, issue 2379. Currently needs code review and is marked works for me. St. Paul Tim, you're the advocate for this issue. Could you give us an update?
Sure. I think the big update is that last week it just needed more eyes. We wanted to get some more input. Jen jumped in and she raised the issue of backward compatibility, which I don't know if that's been tested very well. So I think that is our next step in this, is testing it on some live sites to make sure that it doesn't break anything. I haven't thought about it enough to know how likely it is. But Jen seemed to suggest that there's at least some concern of that, right? Jen, do you?
So I just looked at the previous code and the current code, and because the previous code just used a T variable and now we've just swapped it out with something else, the only way you could have changed that is by pre-processing that value. And if you've pre-processed that value in a theme, it's going to override the new thing in the same way it override the old thing. So I think there's no issue here with backwards compatibility. And I don't know if that's something that we'd fixed in Backdrop, or because I think when I was working on this was when we were doing Drupal 7 to Drupal 8, and there was a function that was like theme submitted by that was part of the problem, and we don't have that in Backdrop. So I think we might have done a little cleanup initially that made this possible. So that's good.
Okay, well then.
So I think we just need to address some of the other issues in there, like there was a recommendation that this should probably be done with form settings on pseudo fields instead of the way it's done now. And I wondered how big a difference that would be if we're going to be doing that pseudo field change anyway. And then there was another issue about so if we put in this feature and you can only customize it per content type, then that means that if you wanted to like remove the author name, you would have to edit every single content type on your site in order to do that. And so if there was a way to set a site-wide default somewhere, that would be ideal. Of course, you can always do a theme override. So I'm not sure how big a concern this is, because you have a like developer level tool that would allow you to do it for every content type, just with a node, preprocessed node function. But I just wanted to throw that out there, that we are taking something that can be changed in one place for everything and now replacing it with something that has to be customized for every content type, which probably is okay. I just wanted to make sure that everybody was aware that that's what we're doing. And then I add another comment here, I think like 5 minutes ago, which is that when we introduced the default page title menu settings, I raised the same thing, is that a token, we're putting a token on a user edit form, and most people who use user edit forms probably won't use tokens anywhere else. And so I had rejected the idea of using tokens on the like menu link creation form, because that would be something that would be foreign to these people. We're going to run into the same problem here, where you've probably never seen a node : submitted : date bracket thing. But I noticed that on the date formats page, we have some JavaScript that'll like automatically calculate your PHP date format as you're typing in those weird letters. So we already have sort of a mechanism for working with something that you'd be sort of blind using, like you don't know what the output of that's going to be. And if there's a way, I don't know if we can do a token replace in JavaScript, but I imagine we've probably done this somewhere in core before. But if there's a way that we could show the actual output of that, then I would feel okay with using tokens, because at least we're giving people, like, you don't know what this tool is, but you can see the results of the box that you're putting stuff into. You can see what it's like on the way out. So that's something that we could, if we can figure out how to do that, then I think it reduces the craziness of what a token is problem.
As in showing a preview of what will be saved.
Yeah.
With the actual token replaced with the value. Like if it's current user, then the logged in user or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of makes sense.
And I think we'll have all those values on the form, as long as the form, you know, like as default values, even if the
so long as a token is not being used, which requires the form to be saved, because the submitted date, of course, cannot be. We can only calculate it. I think that's a
I think we can just use now, like whatever that default value would be, we can throw in
the current time or something. Yeah.
All right. I'm posting some comments on that too, but I won't take up our time here. That's all we've got for 1.16. Do you guys have anything else you guys would like to bring up for the next minor version?
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so I was talking to Irina. She came to the Drupal, San Francisco Drupal users group last Thursday, where I presented on doing an update from Drupal to Backdrop. And she showed me this module in Drupal 8 that I hadn't seen before called the Migrate UI. I posted some screenshots of it in this issue I created for Backdrop. It is issue number 4345. I'll post a link here, and in Zulip, which essentially will allow people to install a brand new Backdrop site, drop in all of the modules they had on their Drupal 7 site, connect their Backdrop site to a second database, and then it'll run a sort of a report and be like, this is the status of all of the things that you have. So for example, you have a node type in here that doesn't have a module that defined it, or I don't know, your module doesn't have an upgrade path, or I don't know, information like that. And I figured we could do exactly the same thing in Backdrop that's in Drupal 8, and it's probably going to be more useful to our target audience than the kinds of people who are doing upgrades to Drupal 8, because we have a lot of people who are going to want to use a user interface for this, rather than people who are comfortable writing migrate scripts or doing things on the command line. Because we already have a bunch of tools that do these kind of comparisons, for example, we have the Backdrop module update status module, which you can plug into a Drupal 7 site, and it'll tell you the status of all of the modules you're running for Backdrop. I figured we could sort of marry those two things together and say, okay, we know the status of all these Drupal 7 modules. We can tell you if they're ready or not. And then when you have your Backdrop site ready, we can run the same report again and be like, okay, those are the status of all those modules, but now this is how they would upgrade or not. And so it seemed like, I know we can't reuse the code that's in Drupal 8, but we can definitely copy the interface and build a similar experience for people. And then one of the examples that Irina gave me was, if you were on Pantheon, you could click the button to show a Backdrop site, upload your existing database, and push go, and you would have a sample of what your site might look like. in Backdrop, just as a, in a quick few step process, which seemed like it could be killer. So
how do you think this would work? Like set up a vanilla Backdrop site, point it to a database that it needs to import, and instead of doing the import, actually running the tests first so that it shows you.
So you'd have a brand new Backdrop site connected to an empty database, just the way that you would normally install Backdrop. And then you plunk in all the modules you need that match what we're in Drupal 7, and then enable this module. And then it would say, hey, these are the upgrade paths that are supported. This is the stuff we have found in your Drupal 7 database that doesn't have an upgrade path. So what's in the modules table that's enabled that you don't currently have, and its status. So it would be sort of like the spreadsheet that I make before I do an update, where it's like, this is the status of everything. I want to automate that so that if there's a way that we can get all of that data for people ahead of time. So it would do the module status. It would do your content type, field to module mapping, stuff like that, that we can just determine because there's values in the database for it. I think we should try and make it easier for people following to not have to make such crazy spreadsheets. That's the goal.
How big of a project is this, and how close are you to like needing testing?
It's a fairly big project. I spent some time yesterday fixing up the Backdrop update status module. Backdrop module update module status module. And so that should have all of the 74 modules that are included in core are now represented in that module. I filed the pull request for that yesterday. And it worked. So that was step one, was making sure that we had everything that was in core defined. That module also reaches out to GitHub to find out if there's a stable release of any other contrib modules that are already there, which is that, so that piece is done. So what's missing is like the user interface part and hooking all of the tools we have up into it. So I want to copy that from Drupal 8. I'm going to have a meeting with Irina later today to go over this issue I created for Backdrop and make sure that we note anything in particular that needs to be covered. Like in Backdrop's version, I would like it to have a upload your database button. I'm not sure that'll work, if you're doing it on an external web host or something with a file limit, but I think that would be a killer feature too. And then I would like to try and start building it. The goal is to have something in a demonstratable state by Stanford WebCamp, which is next week.
Oh.
So
okay.
Not sure how close that'll get, but I told her I would put some time into it and see if we could get there.
So could you clarify, Jen? This is a Backdrop module.
Yes.
That reads your Drupal 7 database.
Yes. Before it does the upgrade, and then it gives you a button to push that will actually do it for you. And I don't know, I haven't done this with a Drupal 8 site. I don't know if it has the CCK style like forward back revert thing. I wasn't planning on adding anything like that. It was more like, here's all of the information you need to know before you upgrade type tool that if all the boxes are checked, it then also gives you the button to run the upgrade.
Do you feel that once this has been tested is a core material? And the reason why I'm asking is because in D8 they seem to be including migrate module bits slowly, which will make the migration easier. So it sounds like eventually.
So this module, the migrate UI module is in Drupal 8 core. So I opened this as a core issue for Backdrop and was like, we should have an upgrade UI tool in core also. But because it's a big project and fairly standalone, I figured I would develop it as a contrib project first. And that would give us a chance to kind of try it and see how it goes and then figure out if we think it's something that belongs in core. If it goes into core, I would imagine it would integrate more tightly with our current update.php process. So I will probably be like calling a bunch of those functions from the contrib module, but I don't know if the end result is going to be like a replacement for that process or just an alternate way to do it. But yeah, we got to figure that out when we get to integrating it. But for now, I just want to see if I can get the report to generate all the information on letting people know how close they are to getting their site into Backdrop.
Now that we're talking about migrations and making it easier, ideally with the one button thing, as you said, just test all green go thing. I watched the last video recording of the virtual user group, and I noticed that one of the major bottlenecks when you're doing the conversion is trying to figure out which layouts to map to templates or whatever you had in D7. And this has been in my head for a while, and your comment now has sort of like triggered to throw that idea on the table. The problem is that we had, up to recently, we had specific layouts in core, and people had to write their own layouts. But now we have the flexible layouts, which can sort of like, so I always thought, can we possibly scan a template, see what it does, what regions sort of like it creates or whatever, and then create a flexible template out of it?
I think this is something Coder module might be able to do. It's a little tricky because in Drupal 7, you could name your theme regions whatever the heck you wanted. There's obviously some standard things that need to be printed out, like messages and tabs and whatever, and we can tell where those are going to go. But we might end up creating regions for every variable that's printed in the template, even if it's not a region variable, it's
the thing though that will be generated will be a flexible layout, which if we didn't get it, the automated process didn't get it right, they can go and tweak it instead of having to do the whole thing themselves.
I like where you're coming from with this, because we're taking something that's code and turning it into configuration that can be modified. My brain says yes, it's possible, but it's going to be hard, and it's
tricky.
Probably not going to get us all the way there, but that might be enough.
Wouldn't we have to scan the CSS in order to figure which things are supposed to be above or below each other?
Yeah, it will be tricky. Depending on what its theme was doing, it will be tricky. I'm not saying it's not going to be tricky, but maybe we can get people like 50% of the way there.
Yeah.
And it might work. It might work even better in simpler sites with simpler themes.
Yeah. We might also so I was also thinking that if you wanted to do the coder upgrade path, it might be easier to create a new template from the current template than to create a new configurable layout template from the current template. But that would be part of a theme upgrade. So like rather than using coder upgrade to upgrade a module, which is what it does now, if you use coder upgrade to upgrade a theme, we could convert a page template file into a layout template file pretty easily. But I don't know how, like the fact that the CSS moves things around, like you might have like a content first where all your sidebars are like at the bottom, but then they render with CSS. That does make it really hard. We could make a configuration layout that exactly matches the order in the code. But I'm not sure that people will find that recognizable either once we get it into configuration. So I like this idea. I have hesitations.
Yeah, of course, because like I haven't tested the specifics or how it would work. It was just an idea, as in how about if we could, sort of like a wish more than an idea. Like I didn't check if it's technically feasible.
Yeah. Jen, some thoughts on your module. I'm not sure if you've contemplated doing stuff like making most of this be like a Drupal 7 module instead. And then like, because a Drupal 7 site would be much more capable of telling if it's ready for backdrop than trying to import a database into a backdrop site and then somehow read that Drupal 7 database, which is in a much harder to read thing because it's an unupdated database. So backdrop, it won't be able to load and read things out of it other than using raw database queries.
Yeah.
You won't really have any API to speak of.
So the backdrop upgrade status module is a Drupal 7 module. I'm going to throw a link to that in here too.
Right.
And that's the one that gets all of the information on, whether your Drupal modules are ready for Backdrop or not. And it'll list like all the ones that are included in core now, as well as anything that it finds on backdropcms.org.
And this is actually Drupal 7 module? It is?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that's what I was working on yesterday to make sure that that's up to date. So I think that's the first step.
Okay.
But once somebody gets enough green on their report from this thing, it would also be good to get the same kind of experience you get from Drupal 8 with, you know, essentially connecting one site to two databases and having it run a couple of raw SQL queries on the old database, because we know what format it's going to be in. And I'm happy to spend some time on this in Contrib first before we figure out if it's going to be a core candidate or not. But I think it would be pretty cool if we could say like these 4 modules do not have upgrade paths in the Backdrop version of the module. Something like that would be really useful for people.
So, okay, that's great. First of all, I think the Drupal 7 module approach would make things a lot easier for checking the status. Another crazy, this might be crazy, is that if you have a module on your Drupal 7 site that provides like this update status thing, either as a separate project or part of this one, you could also put a companion module in there that instead of uploading your database to the Backdrop site, the Drupal 7 site could provide
A feed.
like JSON endpoints or something like that. And so instead of uploading the URL, or uploading the database, you'd point at the URL. And that would give you like possibilities to like massage and fix the data in Drupal 7, or like also like transfer all the files, for example, like, because it's more than just the database, it's the files too, but it would also be a lot slower because
Yeah,
a lot of data to move across the wire, you know.
interesting.
I don't know, just thoughts.
Yeah, that's interesting too. So I was also thinking about this yesterday when I was working on this module. I was like, okay, so this gives you the modules tab of my spreadsheet, but can I also give you the node types and the layouts and all of the other stuff in a report on your Drupal 7 site? And so I was kind of brainstorming about ways to automate the things that I've been doing manually. I think it'll make my process faster doing upgrades. So it seems like also if I've already researched all of this stuff, like finding a way to share that with everyone else would be really good. And in particular, I have a column on my spreadsheet of like work necessary to get the module from Drupal to Backdrop. And I would love to find a way to communicate that to people where it's like, okay, you're coming from CK editor module in Drupal 7. We have a CK editor module in Backdrop. Your settings will not upgrade. Like maybe they eventually will have an upgrade path, but right now they don't. How do we communicate that to somebody who from a user experience would be like, okay, they both say CK editor, surely there's support, and then you get it and you're surprised. Just having that information ahead of time is going to be valuable to people. So yeah, I was trying to figure out if there's a way I could add that to the current report where it's like work required in upgrading, and then have like, yeah. So I like the idea of exposing the data you need, like here are your node types and here are the modules that are required for fields and whatever. That's really fascinating. So I'll look at that too.
Like port the headless module to D7. No.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems like a can of worms, but you might be able to make something work.
Well, it's a long term. Like we have a 1.5 year until D7 becomes end of life, and the easier we make it for people to migrate, the more people will migrate. So although these are crazy ideas, it's like maybe we should see. I always remember Jeff's words that we thought that things were going to be like the automatic updates. Oh, it was easier than we thought, after all. So you never know.
We haven't quite gotten there yet.
Yes, I know. But
self-updating was easier than we thought. Automatic updating still will do this. So.
Yeah.
So given all the current circumstances and some of these projects, is now a better time to like have some mini sprints where people are at least available online together and can talk through hard issues?
Yeah.
And so I would recommend 2 things. One of which is, how about if we sort of start calling that time we block for office hours on Wednesday as sort of office hour and sprinting, because then we can both focus on answering people's questions. But if nobody's there, we can collaborate and sprint on backdrop issues. And then also just encourage people that if they do want to sprint for a couple hours, to just post it and get it, in Zulip. There's no cost. If nobody comes, you haven't lost anything. But so, or we could do something more formal. If anybody's especially, I think if you have a particular topic or something you want to work on that you really need help on, and this is something I'm always happy to help with in the organizing of stuff. So if somebody feels like they'd really like to do a sprint on a specific issue, let me know. I'll help promote it and schedule it.
All right, we're pushing well over an hour now, so I think maybe we should wrap it up. Do you guys have anything else you guys would like to talk about?
Just a real quick yes/no answer. Are we including in this bug fix release whatever other commits were in D7? Because I saw that there were a few, or just that security.
Yeah, things. There's already been things merged into 115, and everything that's in the 115 branch right now will go out at the same time as the security release. And so, anything up until Wednesday, basically the 25th, we'll want to be extra cautious, with the kinds of things that we put in, because introducing regressions in security releases is people's least favorite thing. So
yeah, of course.
But yes, everything will go out on the next release.
Not as in the ones that we have already included, but commits that have been made in Drupal.
Oh,
So besides cross-ports, there's a few, like 7 commits. There was one thing that was committed, then reverted, and I think then committed again. But are we going to include those?
If there's pull requests and
Yes. Okay.
get coverage to
That's the actual question. Should I be working on that, or are they not going to happen? That was the actual question.
Sure. I think that would be good, because they're all recent fixes. They're probably all apply pretty easily. I'm not sure that do you know where we are as far as general Drupal 7 cross ports? Are we?
Yeah, we're good. I think it's time that there's a release for D7. We usually do all the ports. It's just now that it's a security. So are we intending to just do just that and then leave the rest, or should we just do everything?
I see. No, I think we should strive to include all of the things that
Okay,
were in the latest Drupal version. We should strive to include them.
Okay, that's what I was getting at. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's a great
No.
suggestion. Thank you for the offer.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else?
You want us to download that security release and test it on our sites, right? So
Yeah, like to move the security pull request into the public pull request queue, so that you don't have to do it locally. You could just use the sandbox, but doing it locally wouldn't hurt if you want to do that as well.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks everybody. Let's end the broadcast, and yeah, thanks everybody for joining the meeting, and see you guys all on the internet.
So yeah.